Live from New Delhi, you're watching DD India Live, India's voice to the world. I'm Sheikh coming up in the next 30 minutes. World Economic Forum being held in Davos from January 19th to 23rd under the theme A Spirit of Dialogue. India to focus on digital innovation, sustainable energy transitions and infrastructure development. EU to convene emergency summit in Brussels to discuss potential retaliation if Trump imposes tariffs from February 1st. Trump says US will ensure Russian threat stays away from Greenland. UAE President Sheikh Mohamed bin Zayed Al Nahyan arrives in India on Monday to hold bilateral talks with Prime Minister Modi. Two high-speed trains derailed in southern Spain, at least 21 people killed. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez terms it as a night of deep pain. The World Economic Forum annual meeting 2026 is set to begin in Davos on Monday. The 5-day summit will run until January 23rd. The event is being held under the theme A Spirit of Dialogue with a focus on cooperation in a contested world, innovation-led growth and inclusive development. The Swiss federal government, together with the WEF Foundation and its other partners, will contribute to the cost of WEF annual meeting security measures for the period 2025 to 27. As part of a three-tier finance model. The attendees include approximately 200 to 300 internationally protected persons such as heads of state and government, ministers and high-level representatives of international organizations. Security is like never before in this edition. More than 5,000 armed forces personnel, snipers, AI-powered drones and special tools to counter spywares and espionage are placed. More than 500 journalists are also at Davos to cover the event. Demonstrations are also part of the summit. This time, Swiss government are willing to authorize demonstrations, but it is essential that requirements to protect people, infrastructure and property are respected. So in order to hold a demonstration, detailed arrangements need to be made between the organizers and authorities. India is set to mount one of its strongest representations at this year's World Economic Forum annual meeting in Davos. Union ministers, chief ministers of various states and over 100 CEOs of leading corporates winging their way. India has convincingly retained its tag as the fastest growing major economy in the world, and the political and business leadership will be making a strong pitch to attract global investments. Union Ministers Prahlad Joshi, K. Ram Mohan Naidu and Maharashtra's Chief Minister Devendra Fadnavis have already arrived at Zurich in Switzerland. At Davos, India will focus on digital innovation, sustainable energy transitions and infrastructure development. Moving on, European leaders continue to weigh their response to US President Donald Trump's tariff threats over Greenland. The EU leaders will convene an extraordinary summit in Brussels on Thursday to discuss the bloc's response to the US. The leaders have already decided to defend against any form of coercion while continuing to engage constructively with the United States. Meanwhile, EU Commission President Ursula von der Leyen and other members said on Sunday that the EU and Britain stand firm in their commitment to uphold the sovereignty of Greenland and the Kingdom of Denmark. Trump has said that Denmark has not been able to do anything to get the Russian threat away from Greenland and said now it is time and it will be done. Trump has repeatedly insisted he will settle for nothing less than ownership of Greenland and autonomous territory of Denmark. Leaders of both Denmark and Greenland have insisted the island is not for sale and does not want to be part of the United States. Well, updates on Ukraine-Russia conflict now. Ukraine's top negotiator Rustem Umerov said on Sunday that talks with US officials on a resolution of the nearly 4-year-old conflict with Russia would continue at the World Economic Forum in the Swiss resort of Davos. Umerov, writing on social media platform Telegram, said 2 days of talks in Florida with the US team, including envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner, President Donald Trump's son-in-law, had focused on security guarantees and a post-war recovery plan for Ukraine. Umerov further said the two sides had discussed in depth the two issues, focusing on practical mechanisms and carrying out and implementing them. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, in an evening address on Sunday, said that negotiations with the US side would continue next week. He said Kyiv was fully informing Washington about the situation on the ground and Russia's continued strikes on Ukraine's energy infrastructure, adding that Moscow showed no real interest in diplomacy. Shifting focus now, Australia's Parliament returned early on Monday with a moment of silence for those killed in the Bondi Beach mass shooting, offering solidarity to everyone bearing the weight of trauma and loss in Parliament. Australian PM Anthony Albanese made it clear to every Jewish Australian that they are not alone.
As we join in mourning for the 15 souls whose lives and futures were so cruelly stolen, our hearts also go out to everyone injured and traumatised, people who will always carry scars from what they suffered and saw on that dark night.
First responders and victims' families were also watched the day one of the session from the public gallery. Lawmakers had been due to return from their Southern Hemisphere summer break next month, but PM Albanese recalled Parliament 2 weeks early to commemorate victims and begin debate on gun control and hate speech reforms. Two gunmen who police allege were inspired by Islamic State opened fire at a Jewish Hanukkah event on the city's iconic Bondi Beach last month, killing 15 people in the country's worst such incident in decades. The attack shocked the nation and led to calls for tougher action on anti-Semitism and gun control, with Prime Minister Albanese pledging tougher action on both. Well, updates on anti-ICA protests in US. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents continued their raids in St. Paul area of Minnesota. Increasingly tense confrontations between residents and federal officers have erupted in Minneapolis since Rennie Good was fatally shot by an ICA officer on January 7th. In another incident, protesters, including postal workers, rallied outside a Minneapolis post office calling on US Immigration and Customs Enforcement to stop using postal property for its operations. The protest followed rising tensions after Trump warned to invoke the Insurrection Act, accusing state leaders of failing to rein in attacks on immigration officers. While the Pentagon has ordered about 1,500 active duty soldiers in Alaska to prepare for a possible deployment to Minnesota, the Insurrection Act enables use of military to suppress armed rebellion for domestic violence. The Syrian government and the Kurdish-led Syrian Democratic Forces agreed on an immediate and comprehensive ceasefire on all fronts on Sunday. Syrian President Ahmed al-Shara on Sunday announced the truce with the chief of Kurdish-led forces, taking almost full control of the country and dismantling the Kurdish-led forces that controlled the northeast for over a decade. Speaking in Damascus, Syrian President said the deal would allow Syrian state institutions to reassert control over 3 eastern and northern governorates, Al-Hasaka, Deir ez-Zor and Raqqa. Under the agreement signed by al-Shara and Abdi, Syrian authorities will take over civilian institutions, border crossings and oil and gas fields that have underpinned Kurdish self-rule. The agreement will also see the Kurdish administration and forces integrate into the state after months of stalled negotiations on the issue. Syrian Kurdish leader Mazloum Abdi, in a televised address, said he agreed to the deal to avoid a broader conflict. Abdi said he is set to meet Shara in Damascus on Monday. Meanwhile, US envoy Tom Barrack on Sunday called the ceasefire agreed to by the Syrian government and the Syrian Democratic Forces a pivotal inflection point. Barak, who had met Kurdish leaders in Erbil in northern Iraq, was holding talks with Syrian President al-Shara in Damascus over the latest developments, as Washington urged the two sides to de-escalate. Guatemala's president has declared a 30-day state of siege to combat gang attacks that killed several police officers. Gang-led violence targeted police in several areas around Guatemala City after security forces regained control of the Renovacion 1 detention center after prisoners took hostages to demand greater privileges for the gang leader. Shortly after control was restored, simultaneous attacks on police officers erupted in and around the capital. Under Guatemalan law, a state of siege can temporarily suspend or limit civil liberties and expand the powers of security forces in response to threats to public order. Some more stories. A collision between two high-speed trains carrying hundreds of passengers in southern Spain killed at least 21 people and injured more than 70 on Sunday, the officials said. In a post on X, the Spain Transport Minister Oscar Puente said the impact has been terrible, causing the first two carriages of the Renfe train to be thrown off as a result. While Spain's Sardif rail body said train between Malaga and Madrid went off the rails near Cordoba and slammed into a train coming from Madrid to Huelva. Arifsar also suspended all rail services between Madrid and Andalusia. According to officials, rescue operations are ongoing and injured passengers have been taken to 6 different hospitals. Calling it a night of deep pain for Spain, Spanish Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez expressed deep sorrow and offered sincerest condolences. In a post on X, Pedro said, I quote him here, "Today is a night of deep pain for our country owing to the tragic rail accident in Ademuz. I want to express my sincerest condolences to the families and loved ones of the victims. No word can alleviate such great suffering, but I want them to know that the whole country is by their side in this tough moment." Unquote. Now, South Africa has declared a national disaster after weeks of heavy rains triggered deadly floods, killing dozens and displacing thousands across the region. South Africa on Sunday declared a national disaster as severe flooding caused by prolonged heavy rainfall killed more than 30 people in Limpopo and Mpumalanga provinces. Rivers overflowed, destroying homes, while thousands fled to neighboring Mozambique for safety. Rescue teams are searching for survivors as water levels begin to recede in some areas, including the Kruger National Park, which is set to partially reopen. In Chile, at least 19 people were killed as uncontrolled wildfires tore through communities. Chilean President Gabriel Boric declared a state of catastrophe in Nubel and Biobío in the south of the country, authorizing the deployment of the armed forces to assist. After meeting with mayors of affected municipalities, Boric confirmed that more than 50,000 people have been displaced by blazes fanned by strong winds and hot weather. Fires have burned more than 8,000 hectares in the two regions, threatening communities and prompting evacuation orders. Much of Chile was under extreme heat alerts, with temperatures expected to reach up to 38 degrees Celsius. Chile and Argentina have faced extreme temperatures since early this year, with devastating wildfires in Argentina's Patagonia this month. In Pakistan, firefighters in Karachi began searching on Monday for more than 60 missing people after a massive fire destroyed a shopping mall in Pakistan's most populous city, while the death toll from the disaster rose to 11. The fire started late on Saturday at the multi-story shopping center and burned more than 24 hours, hampering rescue efforts in the densely packed area. Firefighters said the lack of ventilation in the building, which houses more than 1,200 shops, caused thick smoke to fill the mall and slowed efforts to reach people trapped inside. A firefighter also lost his life during the rescue operation. By Sunday evening, large sections of the building had collapsed, leaving twisted metal and debris strewn across the street, along with fallen air conditioning units and shop signboards. Rescue workers warned that it can destroy further. So we are giving you the updates. Pakistan shopping mall fire, 11 dead and over 60 are missing. Well, there's still to come on this edition of DD India Live. India marks 21st Raising Day of NDRF, celebrating 20 years of service by the nation's frontline disaster response force. Gold, silver hit record highs as tariff tensions rise after Trump's Greenland threat. And La Paz kicks off carnival season with traditional ceremony.
Geopolitics and trade deals. Economic challenges amid development. Hard work and the path to prosperity. It's the economy, always. Between walkers, money is what money does and says. Supply creates its own demand. Between the bulls pulls and bears tears. When supply chains globalization and India rises to the podium. We'll get you centered with the economic brief at 8 p.m. every Thursday on DD India.
Welcome back. You're watching DD India Live. I'm Sheikh. Some more stories. US President Donald Trump on Sunday invited Prime Minister Narendra Modi to be part of the board of peace that will work towards bringing lasting peace to Gaza. US Ambassador to India Sergio Gore shared on social media US President Trump's invitation letter to Prime Minister Modi. In the letter, Trump said, and I quote him here, "It is my great honor to invite you as Prime Minister of the Republic of India to join me in a critically historic and magnificent effort to solidify peace in the Middle East and at the same time to embark on a bold new approach to resolving global conflict." Trump in his letter referred to his September 29 announcement of a comprehensive plan to end the Gaza conflict as well as his 20-point roadmap to bring peace to the region. The invitation comes as the US administration moves forward with formalizing the Board of Peace structure linked to Trump's broader Gaza roadmap. UAE President Sheikh Mohamed bin Zayed Al Nahyan will pay an official visit to India on Monday at the invitation of Prime Minister Modi. This will be his third visit to India since assuming office as UAE President and the fifth in the past decade, reflecting the growing momentum in high-level bilateral engagements between the two nations. The visit is expected to further deepen the comprehensive strategic partnership and allow discussions on regional and global issues of mutual interest. Today marks the 21st Raising Day of the National Disaster Response Force, India's frontline warriors in times of crisis and natural disasters. On this day, the NDRF completes 20 years of dedicated service, standing tall as the nation's most trusted disaster response force.
Every disaster leaves behind destruction, but it also brings forward heroes in uniforms. Today, as the nation marks the 21st Raising Day of NDRF, India salutes the force that arrives when hope seems lost. Raised on 19th January 2006, the National Disaster Response Force was formed under the Disaster Management Act of 2005. After the devastating lessons of natural calamities made it clear that India needed a specialized rapid response force for disasters. From floods and cyclones to earthquakes, landslides, industrial accidents and building collapses, the NDRF has become the backbone of India's disaster response system. Highly trained, well-equipped and always on standby, NDRF teams are often the first to reach ground zero. In the most hostile conditions, raging waters, unstable debris or collapsed structures, NDRF personnel risk their own lives to save others. Every operation is a race against time, and every life saved is a victory. Over the years, the force has played a crucial role during major disasters across the country, saving thousands of lives and helping communities rebuild after tragedy. Beyond rescue operations, the NDRF also focuses on disaster preparedness and awareness, training civilians and local authorities to respond better when emergencies strike. With specialized battalions, modern equipment, and increasing participation of women responders, the NDRF continues to evolve, matching new challenges posed by climate change and urban disasters. Over the years, disaster management has received renewed focus at the national level. Under the leadership of Prime Minister Narendra Modi, the NDRF has seen great emphasis on capacity building, modern equipment, specialized training, and faster deployment. From strengthening early response mechanism to improving coordination with state agencies and armed forces, the government's push has helped the NDRF respond more effectively to large-scale and complex disasters across the country. On this Raising Day, the nation remembers that when disaster strikes, help is never far away. Because for NDRF, service before self is not just a motto, it is a mission. In New Delhi, Akshay Dongre, DD India.
And Prime Minister Narendra Modi extended gratitude and appreciation to the National Disaster Relief Force on its Raising Day. Sharing pictures of NDRF personnel engaged in relief and management work, Prime Minister Modi lauded NDRF personnel for their professionalism and resolve and for always being the frontrunners in times of calamity. PM Modi also underscored their efforts to protect lives, provide relief and restore hope. The Prime Minister further described their skills and sense of duty as the epitome of the highest standard of service. He emphasized that the NDRF over the years has emerged as a benchmark in disaster preparedness and response, earning much respect internationally. India's Home Minister Amit Shah on Monday praised the National Disaster Response Force, saying it has become the pillar of trust the nation relies on during calamities. Extending greetings on the Raising Day of the force, Amit Shah in a post on X said, through its significant role in realizing the Modi government's resolve to build a disaster-resilient India, the NDRF has today become the pillar of trust the nation relies on during calamities. Salute to the martyrs who sacrifice themselves for the safety of others. Unquote. Business updates now. Stock market slid in Asia on Monday after US President Donald Trump warned to slap extra tariffs on 8 European nations, pushing the dollar down against their safe haven yen and Swiss franc. For Europe, Euro Stoxx 50 futures and DAX futures both shed 1.1%, while FTSE futures lost 0.4%. Japan's Nikkei fell 0.8%, and MSCI's broadest index of Asia Pacific shares outside Japan dipped 0.1%. Meanwhile, gold and silver both jumped to all-time highs, while oil flatlined on concerns about what a possible trade war between the US and Europe could mean for global growth and demand. Yellow metal climbed 1.6%, but registering a rise of nearly 8% in January after gaining 64% last year, while white metal advanced 4.4%. A holiday in US equity and bond markets made for thin trading and probably contributed to a 0.8% drop in S&P 500 futures and a 1.1% fall in Nasdaq futures. Sports updates now. We'll start with tennis. Third seed Coco Gauff advanced to the second round of the Australian Open 2026 with a 6-2, 6-3 win over Kamila Rakhimova at Rod Laver Arena. Despite familiar serving struggles, including 6 double faults in the first set, the 21-year-old American showed enough power and composure to seal victory. Gauff, who owns 2 Grand Slam titles but has never gone beyond the semifinals at Melbourne Park, will next face left-hander Olga Danilovic, who defeated veteran Venus Williams in an opener, ending hopes of an All-American clash. Gauff continues to refine her serve as she eyes deeper progress in Melbourne. And Bolivia's city of La Paz launched 40 days of carnival on Sunday with the traditional Descentrio del Pepino ceremony, a symbolic ritual marking the rebirth of the city's iconic mischievous character Pepino. Once revived, the Pepino leapt from his coffin wearing red and green, the colors of the La Paz flag, igniting the first major celebration of 2026 season as folkloric groups danced alongside city officials. That's all for this edition of DD India Live, but do let us know your thoughts on the news of the day. For those on the go, you can get all the latest news and updates from India and across the world on DD India mobile app. The app is available on both Android and iOS platforms. Scan the QR code on the screen to download now. And we'll be back with more news as it breaks here on DD India. I'm Sheikh from all of us here in Delhi. Thanks for watching DD India Live.